Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System. And of course, I wouldn't be here if we didn't have another project. Today, I'm really looking forward to doing this one, as I always do. But we're going to make a necklace. I wanted to make something really light and breezy because it's in the 90s. I mean, we haven't even got out of June yet, and it's in the 90s in some parts of the states. So I wanted to make something that was really light and breezy that you could wear in different ways. So we're going to make an adjustable necklace that's put together in compartments, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But just wanted to let you know that all you need is your normal tools, your round nose pliers. They're round all the way around the barrel. The square nose pliers that are slightly rounded on the outside, and then the inside is completely flat. Your cutters, which will cut your wire, and a ruler to measure. You'll need some kind of a pin or a cylindrical item that you can use to wrap, because we're going to be making some larger sized loops. And I wanted to show you how to do it without having to get an extra tool like this these bail making pliers. It's not necessarily necessary. And I wanted to show you just how to do it with something that you might have around the house. The size of your loop is going to depend on the size of the pin that you use to make the loop. But I just wanted something that was a little different than just all of the loops the same size. The last thing that you're going to need is some beads, of course. Ooh, I got some really pretty amber beads in from Lithuania, and I'm going to put some of those in there, as well as some, and they're bead chips, as well as some other natural stone chips that we're going to use to make, that I'm going to use to make this piece. We're going to be using some seed beads and some paper beads. It's going to be nice and colorful, and all we need is 20 gauge wire. So that's it. Beads of your choice, really. 20 gauge wire, your usual tools. Let's get started. Okay, what's going to be a little bit different about this, the way we make this necklace, is that it's going to be made in segments. And this is what I'm calling a segment. So it's going to have its links, but each link is going to make up one longer link. And at the end of each link is going to be a pretty piece that you make, a link piece that you make that on the back is going to have a little hook that you can use, sort of like a little latch. Now, I got this idea for this link from a wonderful jewelry maker, Samantha Latimer. She's all over YouTube, and she has made this little link as just as a link. And so I took it a little step further and embellished it a bit and added a latch that you can use to hook onto anything. And I wrote her about it. I sent her pictures of it and what I did, probably too many pictures of exactly how I changed it. And she was very gracious. She said she loved it. And so I just wanted, and I told her I would make sure that I gave her the credit for the initial idea for this particular little link. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. I said that we were going to be using, I've got some little amber chips here, very pretty. They're still coming in from Lithuania. They always have to come through customs, so it takes a little while for them to get there. And I've got some other natural chips here that I'm using with it. I've got some paper beads and some seed beads. And I'm just going to have a very colorful, light. It's very lightweight. Even when you put all the pieces together and put all of the segments together, it's a very light piece, which I love. So we're going to go ahead, let's go ahead and get started and start putting our little segments together into one segment. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is make the one link that's going to have two sides. It's going to have one side that has a large loop and one side that has a smaller loop. I'm calling the smaller one a medium-sized loop because there's going to be an even smaller loop that goes on the paper bead strand. So I'm going to do the paper bead strand first. Let's do that one. So what, as far as measurement is concerned, it depends on the loops that you make as far as how much wire you need. It's also going to depend on how many beads you use and how much space those beads take up. I would suggest for something like that you kind of keep each link, the beads that you put on down to about an inch, because you don't want it to be too long and ungainly and too bendable. So as far as measurement for this one that I'm going to do, I'm going to have a little selection of seed beads that I'm going to use. Just going to pull some out here, all different colors. See here. Yeah, I think that's good. And I'm going to use a selection of seed beads, and I'm going to determine how much space the seed beads and my paper bead are going to take up on the wire. Then I'm going to add about an inch on each side for my loop and my wrap. So we're looking at about 2 inches plus 1 more inch. So about 3 inches for this particular link. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is because I think it's a good idea to just keep your wire intact until you get to the point where you know exactly how much to cut off. You lose less that way. And when you're making links that aren't all the exact same time, it's not like you can go through and measure 3 inches and then cut a bunch of 3-inch pieces, because they're not all going to be the same. So this way you'll lose less wire than if you cut it into pieces and then end up losing a piece here and there. So what I'm going to do, I have a 12-inch piece of wire here, and I'm going to start with what I'm making as my middle piece to my my strand that I've got here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give myself an inch on one end, and I'm just eyeballing it. Give myself an inch for my first loop. Get down here a little bit closer. Okay, so I'm going to bend my wire back just at what I'm calling my inch mark. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and slide my wire down about quarter of a way down my pliers. Now, all round nose pliers are not created equal. I just want a relatively small loop. Doesn't have to be that big. So I'm going about a quarter to a third of the way down my pliers in order to achieve the size that I want. But you're going to need to look at your own pliers and determine how big you want them to be. They just need to be big enough to link onto the next link. That's all. So what I'm going to do is I've slid my wire down about a quarter of the way down my pliers, and one side is on top of the wire and one side is under the short wire. So the short wire is what's encased in between the pliers. I'm going to bring that short wire over the top of my pliers and down the side here until it can't go any further because my pliers are in the way. Then I'm going to, without moving my wire, I'm going to open up my pliers and reposition my pliers, clamp back down, and bring that wire under the pliers until I have a loop, just like that. Then I'm going to grab my square pliers, hold on to what I call the face of my loop, which is just the flat part, and I'm going to wrap around the base of my loop. So just right here at the bottom of my loop. And I like to keep that wire close to the pliers because that serves as a guide as to how close I can get to my pliers or to the bottom of my loop. So I'm going to wrap that around. I only need 1.5, maybe 2 wraps. And as you can see, I have just enough to get that done. No waste here. Wrap that around, nice and close. Turn it around, finish my wrap. It's too short to do with my fingers, so I'm just using my second pair of pliers to achieve it. Bring that around. Okay, and then when I can't go any further, I'm just going to go ahead and take my square pliers and push my wire down the rest of the way under my wraps, nice and close, so that there's nothing to snag my clothes or scratch my skin. Sorry about my scratchy voice. I don't know why that happens. I never know when it's going to happen. Okay, so that's all nicely pushed down. There we go, nice and neat and tidy. Now I'm going to introduce my beads. Now I'm just going to put on a few of these seed beads. What number you put on is up to you. Decide what you think looks pretty and go with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and put on 1, 2, 3. Is that enough? Let's put one more on. Why not? 4. And then I'm going to put on this pretty paper bead. Put that on. And now I'm going to measure because I really don't want to go over an inch. Otherwise, it gets a little ungainly looking. So I'm going to take one of these off. I'm going to take this gray one off. Go ahead and put that back on. And let's put on 3 more on the other side. So 1, 2, and 3. Let's put this one on instead of gray. Prettier. Okay, so there we go. Measure that out. Yes, it's just about an inch. Very nice. There we go. So far, that's what I'm working with. And now I'm going to make a loop on the other side. I want my loops to be going in the same direction. So again, I'm going to bend my wire back. Now I can cut this now because I know, like on the other side, I had about an inch for my loop and my wrap. So I can go ahead and cut this off and leave the rest of the wire for my next link. Okay, cut that off, grab my pliers, my round nose pliers, slide my wire down again, about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, like I did on the other side. Bring my wire over the top of my pliers and down the side until I can't go any further because these beads are in the way. Then I'm going to hold on to everything, open my pliers up, reposition them, and push my wire all the way around under my pliers until I have my loop. I'm going to check, make sure both loops look about the same size, and they do. Very nice. And then I'm going to just wrap my wire around my beads. Now I find it easier to hold on to it like this. I know there are some people are really good at holding it like this and wrapping it, but I find it wiggles. I find it easier. I have a better control over it if I hold on to it with my pliers, my flat pliers on the face. Okay, so I'm wrapping it around. Last time I did 1.5. I'm going to do that again. Okay, very nice. Cut off the excess that I have here, so I don't need that little tiny tail. It's too short for me to hold on to, and I don't want to put my finger there just in case it flies off into my finger. And turn it down into my little spool here and let it drop. The only problem is this spool has a little hole in it. So now my little piece just went on my mat, but that's okay. It didn't go around the room, which is what I was trying to avoid. And now let's take my pliers and push that little end down. Now be careful because I'm working with seed beads here, and if you squeeze them too tight, they can crack. So just be careful about how you're squeezing that down. There we go. A little bit more, I feel it, just a tad. There, nice. So there's one of my links. Okay. Now, the reason I went ahead and closed this because I can link it with the other two. So well, let's go ahead and continue, and then I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to move on. I'm going to do this next link with one large loop and one smaller loop. I call this the medium loop because see how much bigger it is than my small one? See that difference? You see that? Here we go. Yeah. So I'm just doing it, I just wanted something different. So all of my loops are different sizes, but they're consistently different sizes just because I want it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab my little pin here. Actually, I've got a stylus here that I'm using to make my large loop. So I'm going to grab my wire. And for this, go ahead and I don't like to give you the measurements because my measurements may be different than your measurements. I'm using a stylus here or a cylindrical item that once I have wrapped the wire around it, it's going to be about an inch, and this is an inch and a half of wire. The circumference takes about an inch and a half of wire. Then I need a half an inch for the wrap part down here. And so I hate to tell you exactly how much to use because your pin or cylindrical item could be a different size. And you'll just need to test that out for yourself. Wrap something around it and then measure how much wire it takes up. But for me, it's 1.5 inches plus a half inch for the wrap. And then on the other side of it, this smaller loop that I'm going to make by sliding my wire all the way to the back of my round pliers is about 1.25 inches. And then I need another half inch for my wrap. So that total is 1.25 inches. Both of these together is 3.25 inches. Then I'm going to have about an inch worth of beads. So that's 4.25. That's my total. But that's how you determine how much wire you need if you don't want to work from a long strand. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap my wire around my little stylus here. Just wrap that around. I find it's easier to find get my little half an inch and hold on to it while I wrap the long stem around my cylindrical item. So there's my wrap. There's my little loop, my large loop. Here it is. And then what I'm going to do is see how they're crossing over, the way they're crossing over so that each side is going in another direction. I'm going to take the long stem, this long stem, and I'm going to bend it right here where it's crossed until it's straight down. So now I have the short stem going out towards me to the right or the left or towards you or away from you. And I have the long stem going straight out, just like that. So now I need to wrap this. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap that closed. I'm going to hold on to the face of it with my pliers. And I'm going to wrap that short tail of wire around the long stem. And I'm going to stay with my 1.5 wraps, just like I did with the other one. It's 1.5 times around there. And plenty left. Cut that off. I even have enough left to hold on to it. Don't have to use my spool. Okay. Push down that little tip so that's resting against the wire, not sticking up, ready to attack. And now I'm going to decide what I want to put on here. Okay, now it's time for me to bring out my chips. So I'm going to grab a couple of these chips here. I'm going to I have all different kinds of amber chips. This one is eggshell. This one's the honey color and it's raw. It's not polished. This one is a very dark red. You can hardly see the red. It's so dark. I just had so much fun when I sourced these. I was so excited. Anyway, so let's put one or two of those on. I think I'm gonna put this really dark red one, cherry red. I think it's supposed to be with this eggshell or egg yolk, it's what it's called. And let's get a couple more of these natural shell beads. I'm going to do this green one. What do I not have? Let's go with this purple one, I think. Yeah. So I've got, what have I got here? Aventurine, and I know what they are. I just can't call them to memory, and it would take me forever. So I don't want to use up your time trying to remember what I have. I have amethyst. I can't remember. Anyway, let's put them together. So what I'm going to do on this is I'm going to use a couple of my natural chips. And I want to, and I've said this before with natural chips, but I want to reiterate it. These are very unstable. They're drilled and they're tiny. There's not a lot of width or breadth to them, so that when they drill them, see, they're not right in the middle. So you have to be very careful of how you work with them because you don't want them to break, which is very possible for them to do. Don't panic, just put a bunch of them on, and if one breaks, it shouldn't completely ruin the design. But I just want you to be careful about how you're using them. Okay, so here are my pieces here. There we go. Yeah. I can get a little more light on the subject. Okay. So now I'm going to make a loop on the other side that is smaller, not tiny. I want it to be the size of the back of my pliers. So again, I want my loops to go in the same direction. I kind of flip these around until my beads are resting the way I want, as little wire is showing as possible. And then what I'm going to do is bend my wire back and hold on to your beads when you're bending. If you try to hold down here and bend, boy, this looks so dark. I don't know why. I hope you can see. So, okay. Hopefully, over here, a little more light. It's a cloudy day, so it's just working against me. Okay, so what I would suggest is that you make sure that you're holding the beads when you bend back your wire. If you try to bend it while you're holding down here, the wire is going to bend in the middle, and you don't want that if you can avoid it. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure my loops are going the same direction. I'm gonna bend my wire over to the side. It's the way I always do, so my loop ends up on top or as close as possible. And then I'm going to bring in my round nose pliers, flip that around so that wire is not showing. Okay. And I'm gonna slide all the way to the back of my pliers for this particular loop because I want a slightly bigger loop. It just seems so dark. I don't know why. It looks so dark to me. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just me. See the lights. All right, so I'm going to wrap my wire around my pliers. Then I'm going to open up my pliers just like I did before, redirect my pliers and bring my wire around until I have a loop. There we go. And now I can go ahead and cut my wire. because I know I only need about a half an inch or so in order to complete my wrap. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. Grab my square pliers. And I'm not going to wrap it yet. Why? Oh, I'm so glad I remembered. I stopped myself before I made a boo-boo. Okay, because now I need to link this to this piece. So let's go ahead and take this little loop where the paper bead link is and slide it down the stem of my wire and inside that loop of my amber and chip link. So you want to make sure it's resting right inside the wire, right inside the loop. Grab my pliers. I think I pushed the button. Shouldn't have done that. No. Oh, okay. Oh, there. I just need a little more exposure. Okay, so then I'm going to wrap the wire around the bottom of my loop, just like I did with the others. So wrap that around. And when it gets to the point that it's too short for me to wrap it with my fingers, I'm going to bring in my other pliers and wrap it the rest of the way. And I only need to go around about 1.5 times, just like I did with the other one. That's 1.5. And then I'm going to clip off that little tip, grab my little spool, cut that off. Okay. And where is it? Push down with the little tip. There it is. There we go. Push that down so that it doesn't snag on anything. Here we go. There, so there's one of my links. Let's do one on the other side. Same thing as this one. All right, so let's grab some more beads here. I still have about 6 inches or so of wire. I'm going to grab my little stylist, give my little tail, just like I did before, about a half an inch for you to hold on to. Wrap the long strand, the long tail around my stylus here, around your cylindrical item, ink pen, marker, whatever you want to use. Here's my loop. Hold on to this. You can hold it with your fingers or with your pliers. If I hold it with my fingers, you can't see what I'm doing, so I use pliers. Hold it right down there above where it's X'd, and then bend the long wire straight like so. Okay, now I'm going to wrap that short tail around my wire, my long stem. Just wrap it around my 1.5 times. Clip off the excess. And push down the tail. Hold it down there. Here we go. All right, let's grab some more beads here. What do I want to use? Let's use this little guy here. I'm going to use another amethyst. It's always fun trying to find the drill point on these little chips. Okay, what else? Oh, let's use one of these little aventurines. And it's entirely up to you what you want to use. You don't have to use chips. You can use any kind of beads. if you want. And I'm going to use this raw amber. Ooh, pretty. Okay, use one of these. Okay, and here we go. Okay, so there's my next selection. Then I'm going to go over here to the other side, and I'm going to make my smaller loop, my medium-sized loop as I'm calling it. Slide my wire all the way back to the back of my pliers. Bring that tail over the top of my pliers and down the side here. Reposition my pliers and bring that wire under my pliers right there between the top of the bottom of the loop and my beads. Once again, I'm not going to close it up again until I string on my little center part of my strand. There we go. Right down there inside the wire, inside the loop, I mean. Let's wrap that up. 1.5 wraps. Flip off the excess. I had a foot of wire and I got the entire strand wrapped up in that 1 foot of wire. Awesome. Okay, there's one of my connections. This is almost the whole thing. Now notice how the smaller side is what I attached to the center, and I leave my larger sides on the outside. So the next thing I'm going to do is do a small link that's going to connect my actual connector here. So I'm just going to take, and this is what's the only thing that's consistent for me. I'm using these blue seed beads as the connector to the link here, to the connector link consistently. That's the only thing that I'm doing the same. Everything else is very random, pretty much random. So I just need, this is less than 1/2 inch. So all I need is about 1.5 inches of wire in order to get this wrapped. So I'm going to grab, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of wire. Okay, I'm going to bend my wire back. I need about 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch for the wrap because it's teeny tiny loop. And I'm going to slide my wire back. Before I slid my wire about, I said about 1/4 to 1/3 of the way down my pliers. For this, I only need just past the tip. So I'm going 1/4 inch. Don't confuse 1/4 with 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch from the tip of my pliers. And I'm going to bring that over the top and bring that around. And then I'm going to attach it to one of the ends of my strand here. I'm going to go ahead and string the large loop inside my small loop. I closed it too tight. Let me open that up just a little bit. Yeah. So I can get that inside, slide that down till that large loop is resting inside the small loop. There we go. And then let's wrap that up. Let's hold on to the little face, and it's a tiny face. So for this one, because it's so small, you can use your round nose pliers. I don't always do that because if it's too small, if you're using the tip of your round nose pliers to hold on to the face of your wire, you can end up with dents in the little loop. So you don't want to do that. So teeny tiny little tail here. Wrap that around. And I'm only wrapping this around one time because these seed beads are so tiny. I don't want to overpower them with a lot of silver wrap. So give that one good wrap around. Oh, I'm trying to squeeze that closed with my round pliers. As you will find, that is not easy to do because you have round wire and round pliers, and it's going to fight you. I'm going to say, nope, not doing it. There we go. Close that up. Let's grab my beads. String those on. Ugh, these little seed beads. Here's a trick. If you put your seed beads down, they usually land with the little drilled hole part facing up. Much easier to do it that way instead of trying to hold on to it with your fingers. Oh my gosh, they're too tiny. Okay, so now I'm going to start my other loop. I say start because I still have to attach it to something. So I don't want to close it up. All right, oops, here we go. Grab my round nose pliers, start my loop. Again, I'm going to go 1/4 of the way down from the tip of my pliers, 1/4 of an inch down from the tip of my pliers, and start my little loop. Not close it, let's not wrap it, and let's leave that to the side because it is time to make our, what is it? The pièce de résistance. My little silver link. Now, for that, I need 5 inches of wire. We're going to start with a tiny little loop right on the tip of my pliers. I'm going to grab the tip of my wire and I'm going to make a tiny loop. Okay. See, here we go. I'm going to move these out of the way so all you're seeing is this. So I've got a tiny little loop going here, just like that. And I'm going to continue with that little loop. And I'm just wrapping the wire around itself. Let's see, let me go ahead and let that focus. Come on, focus for me. Come on. Focus. There we go. So now this is what I have. And then I'm going to hold on to the face of my little spiral, at the start of my spiral, and I'm going to start spiraling it. Okay, focus. Come on, come on, come on. It was doing fine, or so I thought. Okay, so I'm going to start spiraling. Wrapping the wire around itself to create a spiral. Okay. Now I'm using 5 inches of wire for the size that I want. And it just depends on the size spiral you would like and the size link that you would like. Mine is coming down to approximately 1/2 an inch, not including the hook part. So it just depends on what you want. So 5 inches will give me a 1/2 inch spiral and the little V on the bottom link. I want to match them up so they're about the same size. There we go. And I want the little tip that's on the inside to be where my wire stops wrapping around. So there's the little tip here, and there's where I stopped wrapping my wire. So then I'm going to take my square pliers and I'm going to place my pliers right on top of my little loop. So it's right on top of my loop here. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to bend the wire over my pliers, just like that, just until it's straight out. So that's what I have. And then I'm going to finish it, the bend, with my fingers. Just like so. That be nice and straight. So that's what I have. Okay, and then I'm going to bring the tail of wire over the top of my spiral coming from this direction. So I just want to wrap it around the top, just like that. And then right here in the center, I'm going to bend this wire until it's straight up. So this is what I have now. Yes. So now what I'm going to do is make my little latch. I'm going to give myself an inch of wire. I'm going to cut this down from the bend here. I'm going to cut it down to about an inch. So I can cut off the rest of that. Then I'm going to make a small loop here at the top. So I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch away from the tip of my wire. It doesn't have to be that big. And I'm going to make a loop. And I'm going to bend that wire back so that my loop is straight on top of my wire. So this is what I have now. Then I'm going to take my round pliers and about 1/8 of an inch away from the bend in my wire, I'm going to place my pliers, slide my wire down just past the tip of my pliers, and I'm going to bend that wire down towards the back of my piece. So this is what I have. And that can be used as a hook. So there we are. All right, and now I'm going to attach that to my little seed bead link. So I'm just going to slide the V part of my link inside the loop of my seed bead link. I'm going to grab my round nose pliers since this is such a tiny little loop. Hold on to the face and wrap it closed. And again, I'm only going around one time on this link because these seed beads are so tiny. It doesn't need too many wraps. That's just me. You can wrap it as many times as you want. And I'm going to cut off that tip. Push it down. Let me cut it a little more. That's still a little more than I need to see here. Okay. And push down that little tip. And there is my link. Now, how do we put them together? Very simple. Each one side of each of my links has this hook link. And you just slide it in there. And this butts up against the spiral, so you don't have to worry about it coming out. And let's go ahead and attach it to the rest of them that I've already made. So again, my hook side attaches to my large link. Slide that in there. There we go. I like to close that down. And there is my necklace. Now, the fun part about this is you can, I'm going to have to hold it up. Okay, so here's what I want to show you. For this, you can just put this together. This one that with all that you're going to have is long enough for at least a 28-inch necklace. Very long. You should be able to pull that, just put that over your head. The fun part about this is at any point here where you have your little hook, you can unhook it and hook it in someplace else. If I wanted to make it shorter, I could hook it in here and then hook the other side to another part that's got the little hook. And I can make it a double strand, just like that. Put it straight here. So I can get a double strand out of it, or I can take some of the links off if I don't want it this long and I don't want it a double. I can take a couple of links off and just make it shorter. Or if you're really savvy and you make your little links the size of your bracelet size, say you have an 8-inch wrist, make each one of my little links is about 6 inches, 5 or 6. Make them a little bit longer and you can make a bracelet. You can just take it apart and make it into a bracelet if you want to. Or you can make it into a pair of really long earrings. I mean, this is so versatile. I love everything about it. So consider that. Consider what you can do with this because the possibilities are pretty much endless depending on what you would like to do. Have fun. I love this. I love that it's segmented. See there, it's segmented so that you can build it or dismantle it any way you want. I love things like this. And this is probably one of my favorite things that I think that I've done. Because this way you can take one piece of jewelry with you to the beach and you can make it into anything that you want. How much more fun can that be? And this is very lightweight. It's as light as a feather. I'm going to switch to the other camera here. It's as light as a feather, and I am loving everything about it. So there it is. There's our piece. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you'll do this. And please let me see what you do, because they're not all going to be the same. There's just no way they can be. Every single one of them is going to be different, and I would like to see them. So all of the information of how to get in touch with me is at Jewelry Jen is on the YouTube page. JewelryGen20@gmail.com is the email where you can get in touch with me, or you can leave comments on the Facebook page or the YouTube page if you would like to, and let me know what you thought about this tutorial. If you like it, if you didn't like it, I would like to know either way, please. I've heard it all. So I would really love to know what you think. I'm playing with this little necklace in case you're wondering what she's doing. Um, I would love to know what you think. I would love to see you put comments on the library Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DeKalb Library, or on the YouTube page, which is youtube.com/DeKalb Library, DeKalblibrary. And jewelrygen20@gmail.com is my I can't help it, I love it, is my email address. Please let me hear from you and let me know what you think, one way or the other. Until next time, sorry, I am just enraptured with this little piece. I hope you have a great week and a great weekend, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.